What is happening? A happy Thursday night to all of you. Thanks for joining me live. If you are joining me live on YouTube right now, getting ready for the playoffs, head coaches getting fired, crazy week. And if you're watching on YouTube, which is where you watch and listen, I'm obviously not at my usual stomping grounds. I am not at the bar this Thursday night. I am at a hotel on location. Dogs outside the door barking, people screaming and cursing. It's a hell of a time, folks. But I am here with my Narragansett Brewery Bohemian Pilsner, a 5.2 ABV. The hotel I'm at is actually right near Narragansett Brewery because I am in Providence getting ready for my brother's 50th birthday. So here we are. If you see a dog behind me, it's Sammy. Say hello to her. Kelly's tucked up against the wall, literally over here. So appreciate all of you. We will certainly get to the football talk, and hopefully you can deal with the background. It is what it is. Let me know what you're drinking. All right. Let's start with story number 5. Story number 5. Tom Brady has been handed the keys to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, if you missed this week, it's become official, really. John Spytek, the team's GM, along with Tom Brady, they will collectively make decisions for the Raiders this offseason. There was a lot of who's making the final call, who has the power. A bunch of stuff has been written at The Athletic, especially Diana Rossini wrote a lot. Michael Silver wrote a lot about this. Well, now we know. Tom Brady, John Spytek, they have the final decision. Of course, that means you have two people, and Brady has ownership. So I would say Tom Brady is running the football operation in Vegas. What's interesting about this, now that Pete Carroll is gone, Tom Brady, he's going to be responsible for whatever happens over the next few months to this organization. And last offseason, he was there. It wasn't a great start. He picked Pete Carroll, didn't work out. He wanted really Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson. That did not work out. He wanted Matthew Stafford as his quarterback, went on some kind of recruiting trip. That did not work out. They let Geno Smith come on in. That did not work out. The draft that they had last season did not go well. So this is a huge, huge offseason for the Raiders and for Tom Brady. And to me, if you want to run the football operation, you should be there. You should be in town. And I don't think it's the right decision to have Tom Brady making the final call for the Raiders organization from Florida, from Zoom. You can't have it. I want the guy in the facility who has the power to make the final call. And right now, the Raiders do not have that set up. And that's a problem for me. If I'm a Raiders fan, I'm not happy with the guy who has the power not being in the facility, not being in Vegas, not working every single day to improve the football team. And then what happens when the football season starts? Are you going to run away from the organization on Sundays to fulfill your Fox obligations? Like, you're either all in or you're out on this. And so I don't like that idea. You got to be in Vegas. Now, the first big question, of course, for the Raiders is quarterback. Who's going to be your quarterback? And are you going to spend the first pick on a quarterback? I would imagine so. Is it going to be Indiana's Fernando Mendoza? Is it going to be Oregon's Dante Moore? Who's going to be the guy who you're going to select first overall to be the face of the franchise? Because you have to get that right. If you don't get that right, you're behind the 8 ball immediately. Second big question, what do you do with Max Crosby? Max Crosby, it did not end well this season. You sent him home. He wasn't happy. He wasn't too thrilled. But here you are, with no quarterback, no head coach, Tom Brady making the call, your best player not happy. So what do you do with Max Crosby? Do you get rid of Crosby? Do you trade him? Does Crosby ask out? Does he force his way out of Vegas because he's unhappy? If I'm Vegas, if I'm Tom Brady, the most responsible and smart decision is to trade Max Crosby. You're not going to contend in the next year or two. Crosby's in his late 20s, about to be 30. I would be moving on from Max Crosby, getting the best draft picks that I can get, and start to rebuild the foundation of this football team. That's what they need to do. But you wonder, Tom Brady, very competitive, as we know, is he going to be willing to blow it up and start over? I don't know. It's $1 million question, but you're not going to contend anytime soon. So start rebuilding that foundation or start building the foundation if you are the Raiders. All right, what are you drinking? Thanks for stopping by here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube channel. I am having a Bohemian Pilsner from Narragansett Brewery. Cheers to all of you on a Thursday night. We're going to talk about the playoff matchups. I'm going to give you my picks, but we have a lot of news to get through first. I appreciate every single one of you. And if you're on Facebook, give us a like as well. The likes, comments always help us out. Story number four. John Harbaugh fired by the Baltimore Ravens. Now, this surprised some people. 18 years as the Ravens head coach for John Harbaugh. In a non-Bill Belichick world, that is forever. 18 years with any organization is borderline unbelievable nowadays. All the social media, 24/7 news cycle, the debate shows, all the noise. 18 years as a head coach. So shout out to John Harbaugh for surviving 18 years in that job. No matter where you're at, it ain't easy. It was a controversial decision by the Ravens, but I think it was the right call. I think it was the right call to say goodbye to Harbaugh at this point. You know, number one, there's a time for everyone. There's a time for everyone. If you're a head coach, a manager, you're not going to do the job forever. No matter how good you're at for a stretch of time, no matter how long of a stretch of time that you're good at the job, you're not going to have that career for 25, 30 years. It's just not going to happen. You make it 18 on the same job, you should be thrilled with that. But players start to tune you out. You start to get a little bit stale. So, you know, there's just a time for everyone. I felt like John Harbaugh as a coach hit his ceiling in Baltimore. I feel like he had accomplished all you could accomplish. He won a Super Bowl, obviously. So I just think it was time for the team to bring in a different voice, a different personality, and kind of see what that gets out of Lamar Jackson. Also, let's be honest. John Harbaugh, we talked about this. John Harbaugh, he blew a ton of late leads as the head coach. We went through this before, right? A lot of big leads. The Ravens, you know, inexcusably lost a number of games that you should never lose under his watch, especially over the past few years. You go back to 2014, starting in 2014, the Ravens were 4-7 in the postseason. That's with a multiple-time MVP in Lamar Jackson at quarterback. You've got to be better than 4-7 if you're employing a quarterback that has won the MVP multiple times. And then you had this kind of weird friction happening, right? You had Lamar Jackson, Todd Monken, the OC of the Ravens, and John Harbaugh. There was a little bit of a weird tension there. You know, Jackson was asked about Harbaugh's future after losing that Sunday night game last weekend, and Lamar Jackson did not stand by John Harbaugh. He didn't really answer the question. He just kind of was like, well, I'm not thinking about that right now. That's not what you want to hear if you're John Harbaugh. If your quarterback is asked whether or not the head coach is the right guy, and he's kind of fumbling and stumbling and bumbling his way through the question, that ain't great. Because if Lamar Jackson was comfortable with John Harbaugh and felt like he was the guy, Lamar Jackson would have said immediately when he was asked, yes, that's my head coach. That's my head coach. There's no one I'd rather play for. He's the best head coach for this football team. But Lamar Jackson did not say that. And that to me was a gigantic red flag. It felt like that was Lamar Jackson's passive aggressive way to let everybody know that he was not necessarily a gigantic fan of John Harbaugh anymore, that he would not be upset if they moved on from him. And so if you're the Ravens, and there's also the report that, you know, Lamar Jackson wasn't a fan of Todd Monken's offense anymore, and John Harbaugh wanted to stand by Monken, so Harbaugh wanted to keep Monken as the OC. Jackson was not really happy or in love with that idea. So really the Ravens, I mean, it could have come down to this simply. They picked the quarterback over the head coach. They picked Lamar Jackson over John Harbaugh. That's what they did. And I think that's the right decision. Pick the quarterback. It's not easy to find a quarterback. It's not easy to find a quarterback that is talented enough to win multiple MVPs. So pick the QB. There's also some rumors about John Harbaugh wanting personnel say and personnel power. That's not a surprise because, you know, when you're in that spot for 18 years, you start to want to do more. So I think it was the right time. With that said, John Harbaugh is by far the number one candidate out there now looking for a head coaching gig. And I would not be surprised if whoever hires John Harbaugh, they have some good success. But you got to have a quarterback. Let's not forget, as good as John Harbaugh is or respected as a coach, and he's respected, I think he's a top 10 guy in the league. But let's not forget, he also had Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson as his quarterbacks. That ain't too shabby. So good quarterback play usually means good coaching, as we've seen throughout the NFL. All right, let me know what you're drinking. My guy, William Sprague, says that he is drinking a Samuel Adams Utopias. How about that? I appreciate you. Vin jumps in. Looks like he might have gotten his handle fixed. I think Lamar wanted Harbaugh gone a little while ago. Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that, Vin. It does feel, again, like Lamar was pretty much done with the John Harbaugh experience. And once that starts to happen, again, you start to wonder, when are we going to move on from this? All right, story number three. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Going to take a sip of the Bohemian Pilsner here. This ties into the John Harbaugh story. So Mike McDaniel gets fired today by the Miami Dolphins. So McDaniel is out. What's fascinating about this is that just this week, earlier this week, Mike McDaniel, speaking to the media, says that he's going to have a hand in picking the next GM. He's going to play a role in picking the next GM for the Dolphins. That's what McDaniel said. And a lot of reports came out saying the same thing, that Mike McDaniel was going to be at the table picking the next GM, or at least helping to pick the next GM. So that was on Monday. And then today, 3 days later, Mike McDaniel is fired by the Dolphins. Fired. So he went from having at least some say in who was going to be running the football operation for Miami's future to no longer being with Miami within 72 hours. That is a stunning reversal by the Dolphins. They let Mike McDaniel go out there. If you let the head coach go out there and address his future, that means you're going to stick with the head coach. Why in the world would you ever let him go out there and have that conversation with the media if you're going to fire him 3 days later? It makes you look terrible. It makes you look like you're disorganized. But that's what the Dolphins did. So something happened, right? Something had to happen. It's one of two things. Either these GM candidates who the Dolphins have been speaking with did not necessarily vouch for Mike McDaniel or stand by Mike McDaniel as their future head coach, or John Harbaugh got fired. And I just have to believe that it is the latter, not the former. I think Mike McDaniel gets fired because John Harbaugh became available, because John Harbaugh all of a sudden was in the market. And if you're the Dolphins and you're going to move on from Mike McDaniel, you would love to move on from McDaniel for an upgrade. And I'm not a huge Mike McDaniel head coach fan, but it's not like there are a lot of hot candidates out there for a head coaching position this year. So I don't think it's a coincidence. And as a matter of fact, let's look at the timing. Mike McDaniel speaks on Monday. He says he's going to have a hand in the GM selection, right? So that happens on Monday. On Tuesday, the Dolphins requested an interview with assistant general manager for the Chargers, Chad Alexander. Now, of course, who coaches the Chargers? John Harbaugh's brother, Jim Harbaugh. Chad Alexander has a relationship with the Harbaugh family. Chad Alexander has a relationship with John Harbaugh. So Mike McDaniel comes out and says he's going to have at least some say. He's going to have some say as far as the GM goes. Then Tuesday, the Dolphins request an interview with Chad Alexander, a friend of the Harbaugh family. Harbaugh later that night gets fired by the Ravens. Do you think any of this is a coincidence? I don't think it is. Then John Harbaugh, leaks out that he's going to take his time in deciding where he's going to go. This was before Mike McDaniel was fired, before it was announced he was fired. So McDaniel speaks, I'm going to have a say in GM. Dolphins request Chad Alexander interview, friend of the Harbaughs. John Harbaugh gets fired. What happens next? Mike McDaniel gets fired. Do we think that's a coincidence? By the way, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross, is a booster for the University of Michigan. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh went to Michigan. Jim Harbaugh coached at Michigan. Stephen Ross went after Jim Harbaugh a few years back to be the head coach of the Dolphins. That didn't happen. What's the next best thing to not get Jim Harbaugh? It's to get John Harbaugh. So I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I would not be surprised whatsoever if John Harbaugh is the head coach of the Miami Dolphins within the next, 6 or 7 days, and probably quicker than that. It has the feel of the Mike Vrabel Patriots thing last year, where pretty much everybody knew as soon as Gerard Mayo was fired that Mike Vrabel was going to be the guy. And a lot of national reporters were all over that. So I think Mike McDaniel would still be the Dolphins head coach right now if John Harbaugh wasn't fired by the Ravens. Now, if it is going to be Harbaugh, the offensive coordinator position is crucial. I mean, that hire is incredibly important because right now Miami doesn't have a quarterback. I don't think it's going to be Tua Tagovailoa. I don't think he's staying in Miami. I think he is gone. So who's the quarterback? You could bring in John Harbaugh, and I think he's a good coach, but who's going to be the quarterback? And you go back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier with the Lamar Jackson, Todd Monken stuff. That was a little bit of an issue. So is John Harbaugh going to stick with Monken? Is Monken going to be the OC? If they go to Miami, is it Harbaugh and Monken? And, what quarterback do they bring in? So there's still a lot to figure out. But again, I think John Harbaugh is more likely to be the Miami Dolphins coach than pretty much anybody else. I mean, when you start to look at the string of events, the timing of all of this, it's pretty tough to believe it was just all a coincidence. All right, story number 2. Let's have some fun. I want you to rank the job openings. So these are the openings that we have. Raiders, Cardinals, Dolphins, Browns, Giants, Titans, Falcons, Ravens. 8 job openings. I'm going to rank the 8 job openings. I'm going to start with the best and end with the worst. And then we're going to get to the playoffs and my picks, okay? Again, I appreciate every single one of you sitting here and watching on a Thursday night. The best job opening right now is the Ravens. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Every single opening, you start with the quarterback. Who's the quarterback of the football team? You walk in with Lamar Jackson as your quarterback, 2-time MVP. It doesn't get much better than that. The Ravens are a contending team. I know that they, did not make the playoffs. They should have made the playoffs if their rookie kicker, Tyler Loop, made the kick. But this is still a contending team. When you have a 2-time MVP, you are a contender. So the Ravens are the best job that's open right now. And if you look at the AFC North, do you believe in the Steelers? Is Aaron Rodgers going to play next year? Do you believe in the Cleveland Browns? Do you believe in Cincinnati with Zach Taylor and keeping that entire operation together for another year in 2026? I think the AFC North is right. Like you walk into Baltimore, you should arguably win that division. So Baltimore, number 1. Number 2 is interesting. I've actually got the Falcons. And I know that there's a lot of weirdness going on in Atlanta. I know that a lot of people are, looking at that, and they've got 2 separate firms hiring the GM and the head coach, which is weird to me. Matt Ryan is reportedly coming in as the president of football operations. I don't know how I feel about that. But here's my argument for the Falcons. You're in the NFC South. Not a good division. I mean, the NFC South winner, 8-9 this year. It's just not a great division. So the NFC South, you have a chance. The Falcons, obviously you have a question with quarterback, but you have a question with quarterback with pretty much all of these jobs outside of the Ravens. So the quarterback issue is across the board. If you're looking at the Falcons, again, NFC South, but also just talent up and down that team on both sides of the football. Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, if you bring him back. Defensively, you've got a couple of young pass rushers that played well this year. You've got a pretty talented team in Atlanta. Do you bring back Kirk Cousins? It sounds like they're going to cut him. But what do you do at quarterback? Again, biggest question, but that's a question pretty much everywhere. unless you believe in Jackson Dart, which leads me to the Giants. I would rank the Giants third if you believe in Jackson Dart. If you believe that Jackson Dart is a legitimate franchise quarterback, then the Giants' job would possibly leap the Falcons because, again, QB is most important. I myself do not trust Jackson Dart. I believe Jackson Dart is going to be out of the NFL within the next 2 or 3 years. He has consistently, since his high school days, put himself in harm's way. He has not changed his style of play. He's not a very big dude. And I think he's just asking for a short NFL career, unfortunately, because I think he's talented. If you believe in Jackson Dart, the Giants are the third best opening. They've got some good defensive talent. Their offensive line was better this year than it was in prior years. You feel like there are some buildable blocks there. Cam Scatterbo also coming back from an injury, but he showed a lot of good flashes at running back. Malik Neighbors coming back from an ACL. They've got pieces. It really comes down to Jackson Dart. Fourth, I've got Tennessee. I've got Tennessee because Cam Ward. Number one pick. I don't know if he's ever going to be a really good quarterback in the league. Number one pick, though, he is your foundational piece. But that's pretty much it for Tennessee. The quarterback is the pitch. Then I've got Miami. Why do I have Miami fifth? I've got Miami fifth because it is a great place to recruit. Tremendous weather, the beautiful water, the beautiful ladies on the beach. You also don't have to worry about taxes, which is something that you look at Tennessee as well. But Miami is a great place to recruit if you are in pro sports. And of course, if you're the head coach with Miami, you get to walk in along with the GM. Like Baltimore already has a GM. Atlanta, you walk in with the GM. Giants, they're sticking by Joe Shane. Titans, Mike Borgonzi just got hired. He's there. The Browns are keeping Andrew Berry, even though he had a hand in the Deshaun Watson trade. The Raiders are keeping Spytech / Brady. The Cardinals are keeping Monty Ossenfort. So, if you want to go in with, quote unquote, your guy at GM, you have that opportunity with the Dolphins, i.e. John Harbaugh and Chad Alexander. You have Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, so you got a couple of young pieces on offense. Chop Robinson defensively. The sixth team on the list is the Browns. They had a great draft in 2025, by the way. They have a very hungry fan base. But again, LOL, can they find a quarterback? Seventh, the Raiders. Interesting spot to play. Vegas is growing as a market, as everybody will tell you. You've got Ashton Genty. If you keep Max Crosby, you got a couple of interesting pieces there. And then I've got, as the bottom job, the Cardinals. Because if I asked you, why would you take the job with Arizona, would you have any answer to that question? Would you have any reason why? If you had your pick of jobs, what's the reason why you would go to Arizona? Why? I don't know. Ownership's not great. The team was bad. You're not keeping Kyler Murray, so you're not going to have a quarterback. I mean, Arizona, what is Arizona's fan base? Are they passionate? I don't know. I have no idea. Vince says it's close to Vegas, and he likes that city. So you want to come coach the Cardinals because we're somewhat close to Vegas? I mean, it's just Maryland says, no idea you guys were here. Well, how dare you? Yes, it's my fault. We didn't announce anything. Christmas, New Year's fall on Thursday nights this year. Tough. I was traveling the last couple of days, but I'm glad you made it. Yeah, so what's the selling point on Arizona? I can't come up with it. William Sprague, how much cap space should the Patriots have for 2026? Right now, I think it's at about $45 million, William. You got about $45 million in cap space. All right, let's get to the number one story. Let's get to the playoffs. I'm going to give you my picks. I don't know how many will be right, but I'm going to give them to you anyway. Let's start with the first game of the weekend. Rams at the Panthers. The Rams are 10.5-point favorites. Double-digit road favorite. Has that ever happened? Have we ever had a visiting team in the playoffs be a double-digit favorite? I can't imagine that's ever happened. But the Rams are 10.5 favorites. 10.5-point favorites at the Panthers. Let me ask you something. Do you think Carolina believes in Bryce Young? Because if Carolina doesn't believe in Bryce Young, why should I believe in Bryce Young? Why should you believe in Bryce Young? Matthew Stafford's been terrific. The Rams, I think, are the best team in football right there with the Seahawks. I might even give the edge to Seattle, but the Rams are really good. It's a lot of points. It's 10.5 points, but I'm actually going to take the Rams. I think this could be somewhat close for the first 2.5, 3 quarters, but eventually get off the rails. I'm going to go Rams minus 10.5. But again, 10.5-point favorites, a double-digit favorite on the road in the postseason. That is banana land. Banana land. All right, then we have Saturday night. This one's a fascinating game. We've seen it 2 times already this year. The Packers. Again, we have another visiting favorite. We have another team on the road that is going to be a favorite in a playoff game. The Packers are minus 1.5. So a 1.5 favorite at Chicago against the Bears. Chicago is just an unbelievable team. They live on turnovers. They have like a billion takeaways. They live on turnovers. They've had a bunch of crazy comebacks, including the game that I watched with my buddy who's a Bears fan a few weeks ago, right before Christmas, when you had Chicago look like they were dead in the water. And then on 4th down, Caleb Williams throws a touchdown pass, corner of the end zone, to a guy who was on the practice squad. Chicago then recovered an onside kick. They make the kick to send the game into overtime. And then Caleb Williams beats the Packers with a bomb touchdown throw. That game was crazy. You know, Chicago needed a miracle to win that game, and that game was in Chicago. Green Bay's been disappointing. I had them going to the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. They've been disappointing over the past, 6-7 weeks. But I just watched this game play out, and Chicago needed a miracle. So even though it's going to piss my friend off, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers. Give me Green Bay minus 1.5. All right. Sunday afternoon game, Bills at the Jaguars. Bills are a 1.5 favorite. So again, another road favorite. So the Rams on the road, 10.5-point favorite. Packers on the road, 1.5 favorite. Bills on the road, 1.5 favorite. The first 3 games this weekend in the playoffs that we are going to watch, they are all road favorites. That's nuts. Interesting game, right? Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen. The Jaguars have been one of the hottest teams in football over the past 2.5 months. Josh Allen might not be healthy. He didn't play last weekend. The Bills will tell you that's because they were just trying to rest him. We know his foot has been a problem. So how healthy is he? Buffalo has a problem when it comes to the run defense. Their run defense is a big question. Travis Etienne has had a great season. He single-handedly got me out of the fantasy playoffs. Don't want to talk about that. But I think the run game for the Jaguars is going to be an issue for the Bills. I'm going to actually go with Jacksonville. Give me the 1.5. Jacksonville at home. I'm taking the Jags. Let's jump to Sunday late afternoon. 49ers at the Eagles. Finally, we have a home favorite. Philadelphia is a 4.5-point favorite against the Niners on Sunday. Brock Purdy against this Philadelphia defense. If I am a 49ers fan, that scares the heck out of me. I don't want to see Brock Purdy against this Eagles defense. I want nothing to do with that. Trent Williams has been banged up. This San Francisco offense is different without Trent Williams. You saw it last weekend. They had the worst game offensively since Kyle Shanahan has been in San Francisco. They could not do much of anything offensively. Run CMC is also banged up. They've leaned on him so much this year. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, all right, you've got A.J. Brown. You've got Devontae Smith. San Francisco's pass defense has not been good. I don't trust Purdy against that Philadelphia defense. You're probably not going to have Trent Williams. And if you do have Trent Williams, he's going to be limping around. So I'm actually going to go with Philadelphia. Give me Philadelphia minus 4.5. All right, I got 2 more games to take a look at. But first, Terry sends a $50 super chat. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate you. Happy New Year's, Pats fans. Here is to a win on Sunday. I'm going to get to that game in just a few minutes. By the way, I'm going to have a deep dive preview for you, Locked On Patriots, tomorrow if you want to check it out. But thank you, Terry, so much for the support. As always, I appreciate you. And I saw that you almost slept through. Thankfully, you didn't. Thank you so much, Terry. Can't say enough. All right. Let's get to the Patriots and the Chargers. The Patriots are home favorites. They're minus 3.5. This game hasn't moved. It's been 3.5 since the beginning, since these lines came out, which is pretty interesting. So since Sunday, the line has not moved either way. The Pats are minus 3.5. This feels like a slugfest game to me. I feel like, both teams are going to try to run the football. We know that LA wants to be physical. We know that Mike Vrabel for the Patriots, he's been preaching about physicality all week long. So this kind of feels like a slugfest. The Chargers, they turn the football over. They've turned the ball over in 14 of 17 games this year. Since the hand injury, the fractured left hand of Justin Herbert, since that injury, Herbert has fumbled 5 times. 5 times. He injured the hand week 13. So turnovers are a problem. Los Angeles' offensive line is a problem. The Patriots, I think, you got questions about the red zone. I know Kayshon Boutte popped up on the injury report today with a hamstring. I don't think the difference between you winning or losing is Kayshon Boutte. I do think the Patriots will do just enough. I've got the Patriots. I would lay the 3.5. But this is going to be a tight game. I'm not super confident in laying 3.5, but I think the Patriots win this. I would go Pats minus the 3.5. Final game of Wild Card Weekend. Houston, another road favorite. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 road favorites. 4 out of the 6 games, the road team is favored. I don't know how many times we've seen that in the NFL. Can't be many, if any. So you got Houston laying 3. Houston laying 3 at the Steelers. Of course, the Steelers are fortunate that Tyler Loop missed the kick. I didn't have the Pittsburgh Steelers winning last weekend. I thought the Ravens would win. And I thought that game turned when Kyle Hamilton got hurt. As soon as Kyle Hamilton left that game, all of a sudden things opened up for the passing offense. Things opened up for the Steelers offense in general. And Aaron Rodgers played so much better as soon as Kyle Hamilton, the chess piece, left that game. So I'm not going to put too much into what we saw last week minus Kyle Hamilton. I'm going to look at this matchup with the Houston Texans and that defense. Even though Houston has slipped defensively the last couple of weeks, I still think that Texans defense is really good. I still think that Texans defensive pass rush can be just otherworldly. I'm not a big believer in the Steelers. Their best wins always have disclaimers. When they beat the Patriots turned it over 5 times. When they beat the Colts, I believe the Colts turned it over 6 times. They beat the Ravens last week to get in. Again, Kyle Hamilton gets hurt, changes the dynamic of that game, and then you have a rookie kicker miss the game-winning kick as time expires. There's always an asterisk to a Pittsburgh win against a good team this year. And I think Houston's defense is going to be able to bottle up Pittsburgh's offense. I'm not a huge fan of the Houston offense. They struggle as well, but I think Houston will do enough. And I think Pittsburgh will turn the ball over a couple times. I just have not believed in Pittsburgh. I don't believe they have enough punch. It feels like a low-scoring game. And if it's a low-scoring game, give me Houston's defense over Pittsburgh's defense. So I've got the Texans. All right, everybody enjoy the weekend of football. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm here on location at a hotel room doing this because I love you and because it's the playoffs. And because a lot of coaches got fired. I appreciate you. I think this will be the last one for a while, the last Crafts and Kickoffs. We might come back for a free agency edition, maybe a draft edition. We'll see. But I appreciate all of you. Be safe, be well this weekend, and most of all, enjoy the football.